Hello, everybody. I am Cynthia Garrett, and welcome to the Cynthia Garrett Podcast. And I am super excited, actually, about not just today's guest, but the topics that we're going to deal with today. So I just want to start by reminding you of a few things. You know, when God made men, he did it on purpose. He made men and he liked what he made, and he made them a certain way. Unfortunately, as society tries to confuse and water down masculinity, a new book from Jim Ramos, who's a best-selling author, a really accomplished speaker, and host of, wait for it, the #1 ranked Spotify podcast for Christians. I love that part. I love that part. For Christian men, this is the place to go. So I just want to start this week by saying, men, stop, pay attention, because this bud's for you. All right. Jim is the founder of Men in the Arena, and he is challenging and equipping men at the same time to get into the arena, not just of spiritual leadership, but the arena of leading and being a man and what it means to lead like a man. He's also the USA Today best-selling author of Dialed In: Reaching Your Full Capacity as a Man of God. And I can't think of anything more that men need today than the ability to reach their full capacity as men of God. So we're going to spend this week's episode discussing men, masculinity, machismo, men of God. We've even talked a little bit off camera about the Marlboro Man. These are all my favorite topics because I happen to have 7 brothers. I grew up in a house full of boys. I've always been a guy's girl. And I just really don't like what I see today. And I'd like to see men figure out how to find their way back to what God loves about them as masculine men and what all of that means. So let's get him out of the studio and on the screen. And for those of you listening on podcast, you are about to hear something that I think is going to change the way that you think about a lot of things. For all of my female listeners, listen, you guys, we talk about this all the time as women, but now we're going to get the male perspective and we're going to get to ask our questions. And I'm going to do my best to represent us while we meet Jim Ramos. Hi, Jim.
Cynthia, I'm honored and humbled to be on your show. And if this podcast is going to be anything like offline, it is going to be on fire.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I kind of mentioned talking about all these things, you know, male, man, masculinity, and how I grew up in a house full of boys. And I always make this joke, Jim, that I love toxic masculinity. Because what society today calls toxic masculinity, I don't think is toxic at all. It's just guys being guys. Now, before I kind of dive in, give me a broad overview of where this all fits in the conversation, you know, with you. Toxic masculinity. Is there any such thing?
Yeah, I love it when people mention toxic masculinity. This usually flows out of academia or out of the media. And I love to speak to people who are in academia. I go, you know what, you're in academia, but you probably need to educate yourself, because toxic masculinity is oxymoronic. If you look at the Oxford Dictionary definition of masculinity, it says the character and qualities of men. Men are not toxic. Therefore, this phrase is oxymoronic. What is toxic is males who refuse to step in their God-given role of masculinity. Masculinity is God's gift to the world, and men need to embrace the full weight of who they are and let the world experience that and let the world deal with that, quite frankly. But,
Right.
you know, there's an attack not only against men, but against the nuclear Christian family. And the best way to pull that down is to start with the leader of that structure, and that's the man.
You are singing my song here. So you would say, which I guess I would say, that masculinity is really in crisis today.
Yeah, it really is. And the reason it's in crisis, and a lot of this is not only our culture and academia, but a lot of this is just the history of mankind. Males struggle to transition into manhood because manhood to masculinity is hard. There is a weight to masculinity. It is the weight. I wish I could just grab guys by the throat. There is a weight when it comes to sacrificing yourself for your bride. There is a weight when it comes to raising up children who are godly and who are leaders. There is a weight to investing in your church and your community. And that is a weight that most men don't want to, most males don't want to carry. And what happens is it's very easy to spot a male. A male defers to the leadership of a man. They defer.
Okay. Now that's really interesting that you put it that way. So you're saying there's a difference between a man and someone who's just a male.
100%. So we're genetically male. We're habitually man. We are male in form. We are a man in function. So okay. Manhood is a product of function, as just it's same as a woman. Like you can be an adult woman and still be a little girl. It's all about function more than form.
Okay. Now I really understand what you're trying to say. Can you dive into that? Let's do it. So what is the function of? Yeah, what's the function of a man?
Ooh, that's a really good question. The function of a man. The function of a man is to live out the full capacity of how God created him as a man. It's to, and I have a little man theology, Cynthia. It's very simple. I speak to men. I speak simple languages. My book is like 2 syllables max. You'll clap, So it's like, so here it is. Here it is. If God made man, and you said that God made man on purpose. He made women on purpose too, by the way. I mean, he made man on purpose. If God made a man and a woman, he loves that creation of his. We know that from scripture. So God made me. God loves me. If God makes something and loves something, no creator makes something without a purpose. So now I've been made, I'm loved, and I have a purpose. And this creator who created me, this is different than any other creator in the universe. He wants to have a relationship with me. So I ask the guys this: how can you ever be a man functioning on all cylinders, on full capacity, without radical devotion to the God who made you? You can never reach the pinnacle of manhood without radical devotion to the God who made you. So to me, it's very simple. And the problem in this world is I have a lot of guys a lot of males say to me, I don't want to be a Christian. I'll be less of a man. And I tell them, oh, bro, you'll never be more of a man. And here's the hard part. This is what part that bothers me. If you look at religions like Islam, in Islam, the more religious you are, the more of a man you're seen as. But in Christianity, for some reason, the more religious you are, the less of a man you are. The world sees you as, and that really has to flip, because that's not true. If you give your life to Christ, you're never more of a man than that moment.
Oh my goodness, Jim. I say all the time about my husband. He is 1000% to me the definition of a man. When we got together, I learned so much about myself and how I should be honored as a woman, because as a man, he knew how to honor me as a woman, honor God as God, and honor himself and embrace his role as a man. Yep. And he covered he made a covenant with his eyes. He had certain things that he did, and they weren't about me. They were about, this is the right thing to do.
Yes.
So how do you get men, who are struggling so much with, as you said, having a relationship with God, with understanding that, that their strength and their power and their manhood is actually in rooting themselves in being able to live the way Christ lived, and having virtue and honor and integrity and all of these things that society is attacking. I mean, how do you deal with the attacks they're getting, and encourage them to embrace the truth?
The guy that led me to the Lord has a saying, and he says it's about Jesus, period, not Jesus plus. And what has happened in our culture is we've really become divided as a culture. And we've really said it's Jesus plus my politics. It's Jesus plus my job. It's Jesus plus my hobbies. And I just want to say that is not a life completely devoted to Jesus. It's Jesus, period. He's the first, he's the last, he's the beginning, he's the end. And so we have to give our lives fully to Jesus and make it all about Jesus, period. I think one of the problems, Cynthia, you and I were raised in a similar era, and that era was the era of a decision. Make a decision for Christ, make a decision. And I'm all about that decision. I pray with people to receive Christ all the time. But God has called us to make disciples. So we need to move people beyond the decision, beyond that crisis moment, and move them to the process of being a disciple. And that's the same thing with men. We tell men, listen, okay, bro, I know you're a Christian. I know that you are a Christian. You're at this men's retreat with me. I was at one last weekend. I know you're at this event. I know you're a Christian, but are you a radical follower of Jesus? And that is what is important. And if we strip away, so we live in a world, I hear this a lot in the church. Everybody's up in arms about, oh, Christianity, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that. Okay, let me just say this straight. Never in the history of the world have Christians been in the majority. The only time that happened was in 325 with Constantine. He made Christianity legalized, and he ruined Christianity. Christianity is meant to be a minority view. You are meant to be surrounded, and until that invigorates you, find another religion. This is not the one for you. You will always be persecuted. In fact, if you are not willing, I know this sounds radical, but see, guys are wired to have a hill to die on. And what I tell the men is this: if you are not willing to die for what you believe, find another faith. Go sell Boy Scout cookies or something. I mean, this is not going to be for you.
Right.
This is the hardcore. This is the believers in Jesus are the strongest men and women on the planet. They're willing to sacrifice their life. In fact, in the first century, under all the persecution of Roman emperors, people think they were persecuted for their faith. That's actually not true. They were persecuted because they were so stubborn, they would not share their faith with emperor worship. They got killed for stubbornness.
I love, boy, that makes so much sense because I live in a household with stubborn men.
Oh, man.
But you're right. I think I mentioned I have 7 brothers. Men thrive on having a hill to die on.
Yes.
It's to me, it's part of how men are wired.
100%.
When my son, who's now 32, if he decides tomorrow that he's going to make orange juice, then he is going to be an expert in the art of the orange, how it grows, how you raise it, how you water it, how it's produced. And I find that to be one of his most incredible qualities, is that way that as a man, he'll dive into his passion and a purpose. Why do you think that society is trying to make men less than what they really are? Because when I look around, I feel like, Jim, we live in this culture that's trying to literally turn men into women. I mean,
Yes.
literally physically, but
Yes.
also mentally turn them into women. And, I have guy friends I would describe as metrosexual males.
Mhm.
They're heterosexual, but, maybe they're different, or they're like you and I were talking about off camera. Some men are they consider themselves nerds, but they're still men.
Yes.
How do you deal with all of these, letting guys know, hey, how you work on the outside and what your interests are and how you express your masculinity doesn't negate that you're still a man.
Yeah. So I drive a lifted Dodge Ram truck. Okay. I have
You're
friends.
my kind of guy.
Okay. Yeah. I have friends that drive Prius.
Right.
I personally think cats will not be in heaven. No, I'm just kidding. I have guys that are dog guys. It doesn't matter if you're a cat guy, if you're a Prius guy, if you're a poet, if you're a rock star, if you're an athlete. It doesn't matter if you're, built like to run through walls, or if you're so skinny you'll slip through the cracks in the cement. It doesn't matter how you're built. It doesn't matter what you drive. It doesn't matter what your hobby is. If we are all in for Jesus, what introvert, extrovert, outdoors guy, computer screen guy, if we are all in for him, he will make us into the best version of ourselves. And there's so much beauty when the body of Christ comes together, and it's so diverse in age and in color and in personality and in theology, right? Like different little theological nuances. There's such a beauty there. masculinity is about what a man does. It's about what a man does, not how a man looks. And we have to embrace that. We have to embrace that. And that's the big, and the problem with our culture is we are trying to make everything vanilla. We're trying to make everything homeostatic. Like don't change the status quo. And part of that is to deconstruct the family. And so if we can say, oh, a family can be two dudes, and their adopted children, two women and their adopted children, be a transsexual and this, what's happened is we started saying this. Even in the church, they're saying this, and it drives me crazy. Oh, I'm married to Cynthia. She's my partner. Oh no, bro. She is not your partner. She is not your partner. She is not. You are not in a homosexual relationship. You are not in a business contract. You are in a covenant. She is your bride. She is the most important person on the planet. Don't you ever call her a partner. If anybody ever says my wife's my partner, I mean, I go crazy.
Oh, I don't know. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But look at the culture of lies. Look at the Matrix.
Yep.
This is what the Matrix does. It waters down truth. So now we go from husband and wife to partner. Well, we have the same watering down of sex and sexuality. I think the feminist movement and the sexual revolution set this perfect stage for women to abdicate their throne.
Yes.
And to allow men to subjugate them, and then tell us that empowerment is in our ability to get rid of the evidence of their illicit behavior, abortion. When you look at all of this, how should men respond to this truth of what's really gone on that nobody really wants to talk about?
There's so much there. The first thing that pops up in my head is one of the chapters in my book is called The Protector. Don't start a fight, finish it. And so our job is to protect. And so my role as a man, so I'm sitting on top of, my office is on top of a school, and I'm a big, scary looking dude. And when I walked in the first day of school, the teacher said, Mr. Jim, can you come over here? I got these little kids, like little 4-year-olds to 12, 14. And she said, Mr. Jim looks scary, but he is a protector. And here's the deal. When a man walks into a room, a man, not a male, when a man walks into the room, everyone around him should feel safe. So I want the unborn babies to feel safe because I'm supporting causes to fight that. I want these sex trafficked people, these young gals, I want to rid that. So we want people to feel safe everywhere. I want my wife to feel safe within our marriage. I want my children to feel safe. I want my daughters-in-law to feel safe under my love. Does that make sense? So I'm a protector. And the thing that men fight, that this is what I love about men. Men are made to protect the weak and the powerless. If you watch the news, Cynthia, and there's a hurricane or there's a natural disaster, the men are the ones rushing into the fray. Now the women are back here taking care of them. The men grab them, the women take care of them, right? I mean, generally speaking, but that's how we're wired as men. And men need to stop abdicating their voice, and they need to get out of their garage or their man cave and be seen. God has, I love this part. I'm just winging it right now, Cynthia. So we live in the Northwest here, Pacific Northwest. So in the Pacific Northwest, there are only two creatures in all of creation that God has made to walk upright in full display with their sex organs exposed: men and Sasquatch.
Wow.
So we walk upright. Adam and Eve were walking upright, naked, without shame, fully exposed to the world. Right. And God has made us to do that. The problem is, as sin enters the world, now we're shrinking over, we're covering up our nakedness, and men have done that. They've bent over, they're hiding their shame, and they're ashamed of their masculinity because our culture has made them feel that. And I'm saying, no, step into your role, step up on your platform, let the world feel the full weight of who you are, and let them deal with it for the glory of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I have two questions, and I'm like, which one do I want to ask you first? okay, let's go here, because you've worked with so many men for so long, and you really built a movement of men that obviously are wanting to
Yes.
be men. They're wanting to be godly men. Why? What do you think from all of your work with men is the area of pain? What is the pain point that you notice the most
Oh,
in working with men?
I don't like using the word wound.
Mm.
I just don't think I don't know, it just turns me off. But I will say this. I think fatherlessness. We live in a
Really?
generation where men are growing up without a dad. Do you know that in 2000, 40% of children were not expected to live with their dad till they're 18? In 2010, that number jumped to 44%. And in 2020, thank you, civil unrest, thank you, COVID, 48%. Half of all children from divorce won't see their dad for an entire year. So we're living in a culture. I mean, we're living in a generation. You and I grew up in it. We grew up in it, where these adult children are growing up fatherless and they have nowhere else to look. So they're looking to Hollywood. They're looking to social media outlets. They're looking to everything. And what's happened is the good news about our culture. This is the good news. It's gone so far down the toilet that we can do whatever we want. We can wait till we're 6 years old and choose our gender. We can do whatever we want. And it's still leaving people more empty than ever before. And I'm telling you, we're going to see a revival because people are going, this isn't working for me.
No, it's not. And I always tell people statistically, the rate of suicide in the trans community is the highest of any community.
There's a reason
Why?
why.
Yeah, why? And it's because psychologically, clinically, it's fact. You may maim yourself and cut off your sex parts, but you're still the same person that you were. It's mental. The problem it's a mental illness and a heart condition, a disease of the soul that really needs healing. And I only know one way that happens, and that's with Christ.
Well, so I agree with you 100%. It happens through Christ and his people being the hand of Jesus. So it's really important in the Christian community that churches establish places where people who are struggling with gender dysphoria, gender confusion, gender same-sex attraction, that we embrace them into our churches
Yeah.
and give them a place to find Jesus, to find compassion. I mean, this is important. And the last thing I would ever want to do is to become a church or be a part of a church that shuns people. Now, we need to teach the Bible. And when the problem with, let's say, the homosexual community, for the most part, they don't know Jesus because they're not living a Christ-like life. So we want to bring them in, remove them from Jesus plus, bring them into this place of Jesus, period, and they radically surrender their lives to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens next.
Yeah. I love that you put it that way, because honestly, I always tell people, when I first got saved, God didn't tell me all the things about me he was going to change.
Yes, correct.
If he did, I would have run screaming out the door,
Peace.
going, peace out, deuces, I can't do this.
Yep.
It was a love story. It was a courtship. It was a drawing me in to his truth, and then wanting to lay down my own twisted notions of what I thought was true. I
Yeah.
grew up, and like, so while guys were doing a certain thing in the generation that you and I grew up in, I was watching Sex and the City. And my girlfriend was Candace Bushnell, who actually wrote the New York Times article and the book, and then, was a part of helping it become an HBO TV show. And, she was writing about what our experiences dating in New York, what it looked like. Well, now a bunch of gay men ran Sex and the City as a TV show, and they put it all on steroids, because I think a lot of things that I saw on the TV show, I was kind of like, no, we don't really go that far, but we were going far. The actual, thing that was set up with Sex and the City really broke, I think, my ability to see myself as the prize. So when you're dealing with men, how do you teach them to view women as the prize, as the queen. Like you said, you told me before we started, you call your wife the queen, or maybe after we'd gotten started. And I think that's so beautiful, because if men shift to seeing us that way, the whole thing will begin to elevate, you know? So what do you teach to men? I tell women we
Yeah.
have to see ourselves that way too.
Well, I appreciate that. We need more stronger women. Half of my followers on Instagram are women.
I bet.
But what my wife is the queen of my heart. And one of the things when I wrote this book, Dialed In, I wrote a chapter that personally was an epiphany for me. And in that chapter is a chapter called The Leader. And men are so confused by that word. We kept telling men, you're the leader, you're the leader, you're the leader. But they don't know what that means. They're told by professional Christians, i.e. pastors, I pray, I do all these things, but we're paid to do all those things. So what does it look like from a layman's standpoint, right? And so when I wrote this chapter, I realized that out of all of the 20 qualities that Paul wrote about in 1 Timothy 3 and Titus chapter 1, he spent more time on the leader than any of the other of the 20. And he never used the word leader. He used the word proistomai. Twice he said, dialed in man, or the overseer, manages his household well. Now watch this, Cynthia. This is going to answer your question. This was a beautiful picture that I'd never realized in all of my 35 years of ministry. Proistomai is a Greek word, and it means to preside over, to protect, and to provide. Now watch this. I instantly was given by the Lord a picture. When I preside over, I build a covering, I build a roof, I build a wall over my household. So you're talking about women. So my wife, when she walks in the room, she exudes confidence and beauty, because that wedding ring she's wearing means I am covered by a man that will go, don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. When you walk in the room, Cynthia, you have a covering, and that's a man who's got your back. He's got your front. He's got everything. He's covering you. I'm a covering over my children. I'm a covering over my daughters. Okay, I am to preside over that, right? I also protect around. So I build a wall around my house. I say, you are not, you 16-year-old. I just saw a guy with a t-shirt on. It's the greatest t-shirt I've ever seen for a dad. It said, guns don't kill people. Dads who have beautiful daughters kill people. And I thought, I told him, bro, that is the shirt of the century. I build a wall around my household, and I say, listen, if you're going to bring some weird doctrine, if you're going to bring some weird teaching in my kid's high school class or elementary school class, you are going to get a phone call. And when teachers realize they're going to get a lot of phone calls from Christian parents, I say, hey, I'm not going to let this show in. I'm not going to let these sites on the computer. I'm going to regulate what comes in through the smartphones. And the most important thing is this. I preside over, I protect around, and within an individual house, you have rooms. Those rooms have walls that delineate the specific room of a specific heart of a person who's living in there. My job as the leader is to manage the hearts and build walls around those hearts. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way they should go. When they were older, they will not depart. That literally means train up a child according to their bent. So what I do, Cynthia, is I'm building walls around my wife. I've been building walls for 33 years around my wife. I've been building walls for 30, 28, and 26 around my sons. Now I've been praying for their daughters, for their wives for 25. Before their daughters were born, I've been praying for them. So now I've got my beautiful daughter, Tatiana, my beautiful daughter, Libby, and I'm building walls around them. I've got grandchildren. So what a man does, if I am building, every time I see Tatiana, I'll just randomly text her, hey, I just want to let you know you're beautiful. I'm so thankful that I'm getting emotional.
I know.
You're a part of my life. I tell my granddaughter, she'll say, Papa, can we go take a hot tub? And I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, honey. She goes, but Papa, I'm the princess. Okay, honey. So what she's saying is, Papa, you've done such a good job of building a wall. So what we as men do is we have to go, okay, do I have cracks in the mortar? Have I built a wall of straw? Where have I failed to build a wall? Now think about this, Cynthia. If a man builds a wall around the hearts of his daughter and his wife that are impenetrable, can you imagine when a man gets it, everyone wins. We have to build walls.
Yeah. And now I'm going to cry because and listen, for those of you listening or watching, there is the absolute truth of what you're saying is what strikes me in my soul, because I've never felt more confident, more beautiful, more loved for who I really am. It's easy I come from a TV background, worked on television most of my life. That's not real.
Yeah.
It's lights. It's, for many years with NBC or whatever network I was with, it was really great clothing stylists and hairstylists and makeup artists. My husband sees me and loves me for who I am without lights and cameras and action. And you are absolutely right. He has built a wall around my heart,
Hmm.
around my identity. He calls forth identity from me. He calls me up. How important is it for men in their household and in this covering that they're supposed to provide? Just, I would love to hear you speak to that. The importance of actually calling your bride into her fullness as a woman.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I'll say a couple things. First of all, ladies listening, your husband is not your savior. So don't want, he's never going to save you. Your identity is in Jesus. So we're not telling you, nobody here is telling you that your husband is your identity. But when Cynthia says he calls out your identity, what she's saying is this. And women, you do the same for us men. This part here is both ways.
Yes.
So my wife, you asked me a question about a husband calling. So what I do for my wife is I do three things. I call her out if she's exuding behavior that I don't think are Christian behaviors. If she's doing something I think is a little bit off for who I believe she is in Jesus and her 33-year history with me, I will call her out and she will call me out.
Right.
I will call her out because I love her so deeply. I want to call her up to her best version. I want, when she dies, she'll outlive me, but I want her to look back on our marriage and say, nobody could have loved me better than him.
Mm.
He called me up to a level. Cynthia, I'm sitting here today because 20 or 12 years ago, when God called me to work with men, I launched this ministry out of scratch. I'm in a small rural community in Oregon, which is the least church state in the country. And I sat around the house. Our house was going to go into foreclosure 3 months later. We almost lost it. And my wife said in front of all my children at the breakfast table, we eat breakfast together as a family every morning. She said, I've trusted you for 20 years. You'll never let me down. You've never let me down. I'm going to trust you. And man, that was she called me up.
Yes.
So
yeah,
calling each other out, calling each other up. And then here's the other thing, calling each other in. Call me in when our parents are aging, when they die, and we have to call me into the grief process. Call me into loving a kid who maybe the women are so good about monitoring relationships. Call me in when you see a kid that I need to give attention to. Like, call me into that space. I need your help. As a man, I'm a thermostat, but I need you as a woman to be the thermometer and call me in. So we call each other in. We, to the deeper places, the darker places, the places we don't want to go necessarily, or we don't see. You call me up to the man I could never have been without you, or the woman you never could have been without me. And then we call each other out. We love each other enough to say, you know what? This, I'll give you an example. So I asked my wife, I said, honey, I'm disturbed at the fact that you are my queen. I try to always, walk on the outside of the road. I try to position myself in a place of protection for you, but can you help me? I'm not really good at opening the door for you. I want to open the door for you. Now, I know that you're strong, you're fit. You don't need me to open the door for you, but because I want to serve you, you're my queen. I want you to train me. So she does, man. She just sits by that door and she'll sit there in front of my truck. Hello. And it's to the point now where I've kind of got it dialed. I've got it figured out, but I needed her to call me into that space.
Right. And a lot of times what we do in relationships is we just criticize instead of call in. I've tried to be very intentional with my words, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. But from the time my son was born, my husband gave me a book. Oh, wow. Oh, it's a book about raising boys, really. Wild at Heart. Is it Wild at
John
Heart?
Eldredge, Wild at Heart, 2001, published. Yeah.
Yes. And thank God that he did, or I probably would have turned my son into a lesser version of the male that he is today. Really, because, as a mom, you are more fearful of, no, I don't want you to hurt yourself. No, I don't want you to. But boys become men by hurting themselves and by
Yep.
falling out of trees. And it's different, right? We are different. Well, it is interesting because I tried to be intentional about words, and I'd love to hear your comment about words. So I always call my son Champ. My husband's in a big meeting today. He's out of state. And so I said to him, he can't talk. He's in meetings all day, but I texted him and I said, praying for you. I know these meetings will go well. You're the man. I try to do that. Is it important for us to really pay attention to our words?
Okay, so my wife has a shirt that says, "Tell me I'm pretty and feed me tacos."
Oh,
I want to have her make me a shirt that says, "I need sex and tell me I'm awesome." But so here's the thing. So biblically speaking, in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 33, we have one of three household codes. The other one's in Colossians 3 and 4, and then 1 Peter 3. But in Ephesians 5, Paul lists this out. And 4 times, it may be 5 times, but 4 times in that household code, God tells men to love their wives. Why? Because men don't default to love. We default to respect. Like if your husband and I shook hands, we'd shake hands. Okay, firm grip. Did he look me in the eye? Does he look like a man? Is he fat? What is he out of shape? We would assess each other and go, okay, is this a guy I can respect? We're made that way. Women their default is to love. Yeah. Everything about them resonates love. Part of their insecurity with raising their children is, I love you so much. I just don't want you to get hurt. I love you. I love you. I love you. Okay. So because a man's default is respect and not love, he has to work really hard. And God has asked him to do the hard thing. God always asks to do the hard thing, to love his wife. Because women default to love and respect is their hard thing, he asks women to respect their husbands. Right? And I know we can go into this deep rabbit trail about what if he doesn't deserve his respect. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying about calling your husband, hey, man, you're the man, or your kid, you're the champ. When a woman disrespects her husband verbally to his face, especially in front of people, it's like kicking him between the legs. Yeah. It hurts him that bad. And if you emasculate him enough, he's going to believe it. And then he's going to go to the office and his secretary is going to say, oh, I would never say that to you. And that's how betrayals start. But right. Women, if I could tell women anything, I'd say, hey, call the greatness out of your man. Like, don't focus on what he didn't put his underwear away, but focus on his greatness and what you see him. When you told your husband you're the man, like capital T, capital M, you're the man. I mean, he goes into that room like, oh, you know what? Whenever I preach, my wife leans over and she says this, bring it. That's what she says. And what she's saying is, you're my stallion, man. You're my horse. Unleash it. You know what I mean? Right. And I'll add one more thing, Cynthia. Part of the way women should talk to men in calling out their greatness, if you see something wrong with your husband, and there's a lot wrong with us, we are barbaric. Instead of nagging him, try to form it in a question. Hey, when are you going to put those underwear away? Hey, are you going to open the door for me? Hey, if you pose it in a question, you're getting your point across. The women I know who have been married for 30, 40, 50 years, they are unbelievable in forming the question, because a godly man wants to serve you. He wants to do it. We just don't know how. We need you to help us without nagging and disrespecting.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Just wow on that point. Because honestly, I think if there's one area where I see a lot of strong women fail in, it's, oftentimes we have to tell our men, more than one time, do this, do that, do this. And my husband always says, honey, you can think on a multi-track. I think on one track. That's how I am. I do one task at a time. That I'm a man. That's what I do. Yep. Okay. So I've been trying to we're 18 years in. Okay. He doesn't think like I do. I can really multitask. I can do 5 things at one time. Maybe he can do 2 sometimes.
No, he can't. No, he can't.
You're right, Jim, I'm trying to be nice.
Don't you dare give him credit for that. That's an insult. He's like a waffle. He goes from box to box to box. You're like spaghetti.
Right. Oh my gosh, this is true. So he's not telling me a lie. Okay.
And when he tells you he's thinking of nothing, he's not lying either. He literally, we can think of nothing.
Apparently so. I worked with a guy once who looked at me and he said, listen, my wife always says, what are you thinking? And he goes, men are like the 3 a.m. dial signal when the TV goes off. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
There's nothing there. It's white noise. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm really hearing you. So how do women, I love what you said. Form the question. Form the question. I just can't. Wow, that's just.
Well, I can help you. I can help you with what you're wanting to. So here's what my wife will say to me. She will say, "Okay, honey," because my honey's like my wife. When I see a computer screen, that's all I see. But my wife sees the computer screen in 50 minimized boxes. She's feeling all of it at one time. So I'll say to my wife, "Honey, can I help you close out some of these minimized boxes? What can I do?" She's coming home from Croatia. So I said, "Okay, honey, what can I do?" She goes, "Can you clean the house?" So last night I dusted, I oiled the stairs, and I did the toilets, and now I'm going to go hand scrub the showers. And so when she comes home, all those boxes are empty so she can just enjoy me. Right. And after a week, I really need her to enjoy me. You know what I'm saying? So what my wife says to me, though, she realizes I've got one screen open, not 50 minimized. And she'll say, "Honey, I really need to talk to you about something, but can you, when you're ready to focus on me, we need to talk." And what she's saying is when you close out that box, I'm the next one. And then she has my undivided attention.
Okay. So shooting him 55 questions about the renovation down the street while he's trying to deal with a client's probably not the smartest thing.
That's a rookie mistake. That's a woman who's been married less than 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Or a woman who hasn't learned. Like my wife would never do that. She'd be like, "Okay, honey, there's a lot going on I need to talk to you about. When can we sit down and you listen?" And I go, "Oh, give me 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. See, so, all right, girls, my regular girls who are listening. So sometimes, we have these podcasts and it's all about you guys. It's all about you. I want to feed you. I want to see you women strengthened and walking it out great. And today is all about me. I had Jim on because this is my How to Be a Better Wife session. Yeah. I'm just going to cop to it fully.
Well, you're going to come on my show and you're going to teach me how to be a better husband. So I'm going to make you scratch mine.
Oh, I hope so. Listen, Jim, I just because I don't want to let you out of here without getting really a couple of things, some encouragement.
Yeah.
So for the guy that's struggling with this, right? What do you say to him? A guy who's struggling to be a dialed in, complete version of himself. What do you tell him?
So my book has 20 qualifications. Okay. There's 20. I have a buddy over here. He's overweight. He wants to go to the gym. There's 7 days in the week. I have another guy over here. He's never read the Bible. There's 7 days to read the Bible. I just tell them, start with 1 day a week. Because what happens when a guy gets overwhelmed, he shuts down and we lose him. So work out 1 day a week, do that every day of the week. And then in a year, go to 2 days a week, or in 6 months. With my book, start with the first chapter. It's the most important chapter of the book. It's the blameless man. It talks about leaving nothing that anybody can accuse you of. Read that chapter, take the assessment, absorb that chapter, and then go to the last chapter, 20. That's the second most important chapter, the disciplined man, making decisions against yourself, and do that. Just go slow, one at a time. So we don't want men to be overwhelmed with the Bible reading, with working out, with all these things. They're already most of the guys we target are millennial guys and Generation Z guys. They're in the stress bubble of life. They're maxed out. We don't want to max them out. We want to put helium in that balloon. We want to help them to elevate and call them up. And so don't do too much. Just take it. I had a guy the other day. I want to read my Bible. I haven't read my Bible in years. I go, start with 1 verse a day. If you go through the book of, he wanted to read Titus. I go, if you go through the book of Titus, you'll be through that book by Christmas. 1 verse a day, 5 days a week, just one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's baby steps, right? That's how you walk. That's how you walk across the floor.
Yes.
Yeah. And for men who feel like they've never really had a male role model. You spoke about fatherlessness.
Yes.
One of the things my husband and I recognized a long time ago when our son was going into college was that, and he played sports. I think I told you he played basketball at the University of Kansas. So we always encountered, because of his sports life, a lot of guys who didn't have fathers.
Yeah.
And that was an area we wanted to stand in the gap, because I reminded a lot of these kids of their single mom.
Yep.
But what they needed was my husband. And I knew that. They needed a man of God to teach them what it means to be a man. They had a lot of strong woman.
Yep.
They needed man. What do you say to them? Because I'm sure a lot of these guys, they look at you and they've never seen a man walk it out before. So speak to that.
So I'm the chaplain of a university football team, right up there to the right over there. This side, they have the more winning seasons than any team in college football history. All divisions, 66 straight winning seasons. And here's what I tell them, and here's what I would tell these young guys. There is a rule out there. I call it the OG rule, old guy rule. The old guy always pays. So find an old guy you respect and have him take you out for lunch or coffee. He's an old guy. He knows he's going to pay. So if he says yes, he's going to pay. And then just ask him questions. That's what we love. We love questions as guys. Ask him questions. Just sit at his feet. That's what I would say to these younger dudes. And I would tell this to the women listening. What can you do for your guys? Like if you're struggling in your relationship and you feel like your marriage is hurting, what can you do? And I would say to the women, once a day, tell your man how awesome he is. Just find it. Oh, honey, you're the best in bed. You're the best lover. I mean, oh, honey, those arms of yours are looking so good. Oh, honey, nobody works as hard as you. Oh, man, your butt looks good in those jeans. So, I mean, I know I kind of went off question there, but for the young guys, find an old guy. There are plenty of guys out there and for us guys, we want to be respected. The greatest thing you can do for me as a man is respect me. And when you say, hey, man, I need some wisdom from a wise counsel, I need a sage, can you take me out to coffee? I'm like, oh, heck yes, I'm receiving the gift now. Right. I'm receiving the gift of respect. I have a chapter called Respect, the greatest gift a man can give another. When a young guy asks me to go out for lunch, I'm paying, but he just gave me the bigger gift.
Wow. You're right. And my husband and my son are both big on mentors.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting, and just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying for anybody listening, when you get to be in your 20s, I find that 20-year-olds, they don't really know what to do. Yes. They don't know which direction they want to go, or they get out of college and how do you start? Right. So I love that you affirmed this, because that's one of the things I didn't realize the value of that to my son, but I always encouraged him to go and find godly men who can mentor you. And now he is surrounded in his industry today. He chose some really wonderful men of God to mentor him. And he's a rock star. I mean, he's just youngest partner in the history of his firm. The list just keeps coming for him.
Do you think I'm surprised at you saying that? You've been saying he's from the University of Kansas. You've been calling him champ. You say he's a rock star. How could he not be with somebody calling him up like that? I mean, thank God it's his mom and not, it's, and then he's going to have a wife. You want her to do the same. That's what I'm saying. It's the magic of a woman who has learned how to call her man up. And when you call him up, guess what else you're doing? You're calling him in.
Amen. Wow. Yeah. It's the Bible says, for lack of vision, my people perish.
Yep.
And that was what got me when I first had my son, was cast a vision for him. I grew up with a mom who, so I would get dressed to go to the Oscars, and my mom would say, and I'm talking after 3 hours of hair, makeup, and whatever designer sent me, whatever outfit I was wearing on the red carpet. And my mom would go, oh, you're going to wear those shoes?
Oh, kiss of death.
Yes. And I made a promise to be different, to use words to sow differently. So I really appreciate what you're saying and what you're affirming, because I think men today are really looking for look, identity is found in Christ, but but we can sew into that, or we can take
100%.
from that as a woman. So I know, I've taken a lot of your time today, but in closing, what would you, I want you to leave us with whatever you want us to leave us with, because I think your book is beyond incredible. And I'm so happy to know that there's a man out there who's championing these causes for men, especially now, because I spend so much time really focused on the damage that culture is doing to our men and boys.
Well, I'll end with a story that didn't make the book, because as you know, as an author, when you source quote, if they can't find the original source, it doesn't go in the book unless you self-publish. Then you can do whatever you want.
Right.
So I'm going to end with this story. I think it'll affect both men and women. And as you were speaking, I thought this will be a fun way to end. We've had a great interview. I'm humbled and honored you've had me. It's been wonderful. So when George Bush Sr. was president of the United States, he lived in West Texas. He's driving home to the farm, to the ranch, and he's driving with his Colonnade. He's the most powerful man on the planet, driving home, and he has to go to the bathroom. Well, there's nothing in West Texas. So they find a gas station. Have you heard this story?
No,
okay. You're going to love this story. Wow. You can tell it all you want. I can't source quote it, but I'm telling you, it's in my world, it's fact. Okay. So they find this gas station. He goes in, he goes to the bathroom. He's got his security guys all around him, his Secret Service guys. He walks by his wife, Barbara. Everybody loved Barbara. Right? And she's in a very lively conversation with a gas station attendant. Like just really active and lively. And they looked like they were familiar with each other. They get in the limousine, and George said, "Well, what are you doing talking to the gas station attendant?" And she said, "Well, George, it's the strangest thing. That was my high school sweetheart." And he started laughing at her. And she's like, "What are you laughing about, honey?" He said, "You are the wife of the most powerful man in the world, and you're talking to the gas station attendant." And she said, "Oh, dear George, if I married him, he would have been president."
I love that.
So that says a lot, right, about different things.
It does. And
Poor George.
Yeah, George really got a life lesson handed to him on a platter that day.
He just didn't realize it was not about him.
Right, exactly. Gosh, you know what? Thank you for that. Because, our time here reminds me of how important we are to each other.
Yeah.
And men and women were created because only men and women can populate the planet. No matter what we do to the definitions, no matter what we do to our bodies, our minds, the way we live our lives, there's one fact that is supreme above all things. Mm-hmm. And that is that in beginning, God created them both male and female make babies. And that's what keeps us all going. So I'm so grateful and honored, that you took the time to come and hang out with me today. And I'm a fan. I'm a new fan of yours, Jim. And I think you are a rock star, and I applaud you, and just anything I can do to serve you, I'm here. And tell your wife she's done a great job turning you into the man of God that you are.
Well, see, you just mastered the art of a compliment. You wove my wife into it. You got me pumped up. I want to go charge hell with a squirt gun now. So you didn't breach a guardrail, and you got me fired up. So, hey, I'm honored to be on your show. I'm very humbled as well, and look forward to having you on my show. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh, same. I'll make sure that Jen and Karen get you a copy of my book too, and whatever I can do to support. You got me. Ladies and gentlemen, pick up your copy of Dialed In and listen to Jim on Spotify. I think anybody who has put enough work and time in to become the #1 podcast for Christian men on Spotify is really, he's worth our support and our applause.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. In a secular world, what you're giving to people is just an incredible thing.
Thank you.
That's it. I'm out for this week with Jim Ramos. Get your copy of Dialed In right now today on Amazon, I assume, Jim.
Yep.
Okay. And if we want to find you online, Jim Ramos.
Don't look for me. Look for Men in the Arena. It's not about me. Yep. Men in the Arena.
Right. meninthearena.org. See, a true champion. It's about lifting up the entire squad. All right. Well, I love you for what you're doing. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.